Hi, I'm Lisa. Welcome to my glass studio. You know, Frit is a wonderful medium, and there are a lot of different uses for it. One of them being casting. Casting is basically when you pile glass kind of thick, you contain it somehow, and you fire it to get something that has a lot of depth to it. And you know, you could have a pattern in there, you could have a picture, you could have just colors, whatever. So I love to use Frit for casting, but maybe you don't realize this, but each different size Frit will give you a totally different look, and I find that really exciting. So we're going to do sort of some test pieces today. I have these very cute little stainless steel hearts. These are cookie cutters. I got them online in a package of, I think there's 5 or 6 different sizes. This is, here's the smallest size, and then they nest right inside each other. So what we're going to do is use these cookie cutters so that we can make something not only that's kind of cute, it could be a paperweight, it could be just something decorative you have on your table or whatever. So we have something cute and decorative, but we also are learning about the material and the medium that we're going to use to cast these pieces. So what I have here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different sizes of Frit. And what I want to show you is the effect of these different sizes when they're used all by themselves in a cast project and the different look or appearance that you will get. It's really interesting. So stainless steel, the reason we can use this is because it can withstand the heat inside the kiln. We're going to take these up to 1465 degrees and hold them for 10 minutes. And stainless steel can withstand the heat. What's tricky about stainless steel and glass is stainless steel cools faster than the glass. Think of it as being less dense than the glass, so it cools faster. So if we fill this with material and we put it in the kiln, when this cools faster than glass, it's actually going to break apart and break the glass that's inside it. So what we do to avoid that is we line the inside of this little heart with this 1/8 inch thick fiber paper. The fiber paper has a smoother side and a texture side. We cut this to size, I cut it to 1 inch, and we're going to line these little cookie cutters. So when we line it with this material, even though we use the smoother side towards the inside, the glass tends to get a texture. So if we line this with a piece of thin fiber paper, so we do 2 linings, okay, one inside the other. The thin fire gives us the absolute smoothest finish possible without having to grind the glass, and it also minimizes the spikes or really sharp edges you would get if you didn't use the thin fire. So even though it's an extra step, it's an extra material you have to have it and have to use to fill this mold, it gives you really, really good results. So the shelf paper comes, this material comes in like a 20 by 20 inch sheet. And then this I have in a roll, but you can also buy it in sheets, whatever you'd like to do. So I want to show you real quick how to cut it. It's very important that this material be cut very accurately and have really good contact with your kiln shelf. If it doesn't, the Frit will seep underneath and give you a rough edge on the bottom. A rough edge means you're going to have to grind it, file it, and then that means cold working, which we want to try to avoid on these because this little shape is kind of difficult to handle on a grinder polisher machine. And if we can get a really nice finish without having to do that step, that's great. Plus, it would be really difficult, almost impossible to grind and polish this inside these little shoulders and inside this area. So we want to try to avoid that if we can. So here I have a large piece of the thin fire. It's a bullseye material. It's a bullseye material because it has this bullseye pattern on the back. That's the back side. So I take a ruler, I'm going to measure over 1 inch from the edge, draw a line, measure over 1 inch here, draw a line. Then I'll take this bigger ruler, one that's really long, I'm going to line it up on those pencil lines, like so. I'm going to take a nice sharp single edge razor blade and cut that material. There we go. So you determine the size of this by the size of the cookie cutter. This is approximately 1 inch. So I cut this material to 1 inch. So it's a little bit lower, a little smaller than the cookie cutter. So let's take this out of the way and bring in the thicker material. I would do the same thing here. I take my pencil, my ruler, come in 1 inch, mark it with a pencil, come in 1 inch, mark it. Then I'm going to use a longer ruler to make sure that I don't have to move the ruler so I get the cleanest cut possible. Remember, the cleaner this edge quality, something on there. It kind of looked like my pencil line, but it was not. The cleaner the edge quality on this paper, the cleaner the edge quality on your finished piece. So I'm going to take the single edge razor blade again, go right along this edge of the ruler, and I use a metal ruler because otherwise you can cut into the ruler and then you don't have a clean cut. And look how nicely that came out. Perfect. Take this material, move it aside. Now I store the thin fire on a roll. I store the other material flat on top of a shelf with paper over it to keep it clean, because if it bends, it can sometimes be hard to work with. So I have it stored flat on a piece of wood on a top shelf with a piece of paper over it to keep it nice and clean. All right, so now we're going to take our little cookie cutter and we're going to take this material. I'm going to start here, wrap it, I'm pushing it in tightly to this corner, bending it. Now it doesn't really want to conform to these shoulders, and if you just cut it without conforming it to these shoulders, you're going to cut it too short. I kind of bend it, and I'm kind of going to estimate where I want to cut it. And here are my scissors. Good for your whatever. I'm going to estimate where I want to cut, and I'm going to cut it a little bit long. I'm going to tuck this in. Now you don't, this should overlap, and you want a really, really nice contact with the inside of the heart. Now you can, and I want really good contact with the table, which are, what I really mean is really good contact with my kiln shelf over here. So I want to make sure this paper is pushed down. And see, it sits there nicely. All right, then we're going to take the thin fire material. We're going to do that, the same thing. Tuck that in there, push it down, make sure it conforms, it's nice and low. Cut it a little long. Now this one you can overlap a little bit. So this one, this thin material can overlap. You want to make sure that it conforms to these shoulders. So what I can do is take a little bit of clear tape, and I'm going to push it down to make sure it's as close to that kiln shelf as possible on the bottom. So make sure I push it down, I'm going to tape it. Now you can use clear tape, okay, but use the least amount possible. Don't tape the entire thing, just tape where you need it, where you absolutely need it. And then here, I'm going to push this, make sure it's pushed down, and I'm going to put a little bit of tape on the top of this curvature here to make sure that the material does conform to that shape. Take another little piece of tape, pushing this down, taping inside that little shoulder, pushing down again. Now here it can overlap a smidgen, and it won't hurt anything. Again, we want to make sure we have good contact with the kiln shelf, so we want to make sure that material is pushed down all the way. And here we have our cookie cutter lined with 1/8 inch fiber paper and thin fire fiber paper. I'm going to put this over here. Now you're going to want to build these on top of a kiln shelf because you're going to be using loose material. And if you don't do them on the kiln shelf, you can't pick them up once you've started. So you're going to transport this entire thing right to the kiln. All right, so this first one, I'm going to go ahead, we're going to go ahead and line the rest of these, and then we're going to go ahead and fill them with these little cookie cutters with material. All right, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different sizes of Frit. Powder, fine, medium, coarse, and mosaic. Powder is like the consistency of confectioner's sugar. Fine is like regular sugar. Coarse or medium is chunky sand, really chunky sand, or maybe similar. These were kind of similar to like gravel in a fish tank. And then coarse, or mosaic rather, is random sizes. So these all are very uniform in the jar. If it says powder, it's all powder. If it says fine, it's all fine. So it's very uniform. The mosaic size is not as uniform. You can have small pieces, big pieces, weird triangles, all sorts of stuff. So what we're going to do is fill this one first. We're going to go left to right, work our way down, and we're going to put powder in this one. So when you buy, I have four sets of these hearts. So these 4 are the same size. This one's a slightly smaller one. So we use the powder in that one because powder takes a lot of material. So I have deep purple, pale gray, and sky blue. So I think I could fill these any number of ways. I could fill them diagonally across. I could fill them this way with layers, like, you know, like the horizon or sunset has layers. I could fill them, you know, from the center out. I don't have a lot of space to work with here, so I think what I'm going to do is fill them this way so that we can see the effect of the depth of the color. I think if we fill them this way, you're only going to notice it from the side. And it's all going to get mixed up and messed up when we fill it anyway, so we're just going in with a little bit of a plan. Now I'll put this piece of paper in here to kind of create a separator. And I'm working directly on a primed shelf. Pour that in there. And you want to fill these almost to the top of the paper. They will shrink a little bit. And you do want your material inside that paper, not over it. Because if it's over it, you're going to get a sharp edge there. All right, so that was deep purple. That's going to be pretty. Now let's do sky blue on this side. And maybe I'll take a piece of paper, divide the sky blue side in half. There we go, something like that. Gonna hold that in place. Oop. Now as I moved it just there, I spun it a little bit, some of the blue seeped under the paper. Oop. And now it really seeped under the paper. So, not going to be necessarily as strict a line on that one. I'll fill this area with the gray. This is pale gray. All right, now we're going to pull these little separators out, see what we have. And I need a little tiny paintbrush or something to clean that up. I'll get that in just a minute. So what I'm doing now is checking the height. I think I want to put a little bit more in there. Because we really want to see the effect of powder frit when you do it really thick. This is going to be so pretty. All right, put that in there. And I'm just about up to the edge of that white thin fire paper on the inside. So I went and got myself some dry paint brushes. I'm going to use this pointy one right here to just kind of get all that material either inside that paper or outside the paper, because we don't want any sharp edges, and this will help minimize that possibility. All right, the next one, we're going to do this heart right here, and we're going to do this one with fine size frit. We have turquoise blue opal, aventurine blue, which we love, and aventurine green. Ooh, very nice. All right, I'll move these over so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to take the little spacer. I'm going to do it a little differently this time. Put it in that way. I'll start with blue. Yep, getting it all over the place. Yep, getting it all over the place. All right, there we go. Now we'll do green over here on this side. All right, now that one really got messy. Whoa, whoa, check that out. Okay, that, look, I lifted up on it and it came out. That is a do-over right there. But look how cool those colors are. All right, so this one may be done a little differently than the others. So what we're going to do is take this notepad here. I knew there was a reason I was going to need this big brush here. Take this pad of paper. I'll brush the frit onto it. All right, so maybe that plan with the little paper is not such a great idea. So let's put this back here again, and this time we're just going to wing it. The heck with the little spacer. Just going to fill them up. And you know what? Since I am working with frit, I'm going to go ahead and put my little mask on here, reduce the amount of dust going on. And now we're going to take some of this blue, Have that on top. Put some green over here. So this one's just getting all mixed up. Oop, almost put that in the wrong container. Okay, now I'm going to try some more of this dark blue on top. Okay, there we go. All right, I'm going to take this dry brush, pat it, so that we have it up to the edges, but not over the edge. Okay, so that is fine. Now let's, on this one, we're going to do medium frit, and we have some lighter colors here. We have clear, citron, which is a nice pale green, and we have apple jade opal. There's my spoon. Let's go move these out of the way because I might grab the wrong thing. It's likely I'll grab the wrong thing. I'm going to try just one spacer this time and see what happens. Maybe I can do it. This is kind of messy, huh? In a fun way. Okay, so we have an opal and a transparent next to each other. That's kind of cool. All right, I didn't use the clear. Maybe well, I can't really use it on the next one because it's a different size. Remember, the test is on the sizes and how they affect the artwork. Okay, so I'm going to hold on to the little heart this time as I pull this out. Oh, better idea. All right, so that was medium. All right, of course I'm not too worried about the dust because it's such bigger particles. So we have a transparent orange, super pretty, a coarse cherry red, and a coarse opal marigold. And this one, since we have such pretty colors, I'm going to try to do a three things here. All right, so I'm going to go for 3 on this one. The marigold is opal. The red, cherry red is transparent. So these two are transparent and this one's opal. I'm going to use this opal one near one of the edges. Lost my spoon. Oh, there it is. I'm going to move these because I feel like I'm blocking your view. Look at that big chunk right there. Yep. I'm pouring Frit everywhere. Okay. The yellow. I'll do red in the middle. Won't this be fun? Nice. And then orange on the outside edge here. Okay, I'm going to turn this shelf like this so that I can get this in this way since I'm right-handed. That seems to be working pretty good. And I believe I need a little more red because it's not as full as it should be or could be. All right, that looks pretty good. Now this doesn't really fill up to the edges because it's a larger material. So right here I'm going to tuck in a few extras. All right, I'm going to hold the heart down. We learned on that one, right? Hold the heart down, pull straight up. There we go. All right, so then this final one. All right, so that was coarse. This last one's going to be mosaic. We have gray, grenadine red and white, and light purple. Okay, so here we've got all sorts of grains. This one we may just have to kind of dump in like that. Or look at the size of this piece. In there, wow. And then we'll do, I like this kind of opal one here, but you know what? I'm not going to use it because I want you to see that this size, the effect of using this size. We're just going to use these two. There we go. All right, so again, we want to make sure that these are inside that fiber paper so that we don't have sharp edges. All right, I'm going to touch these up a little bit with this brush. make sure I have exactly what I want. All right, I'm going to take this bigger brush and clean off this excess material because otherwise it'll fire onto the shelf. All right, so I'm going to brush this excess right off onto the table. You can decide if you want to reclaim that or not. You could work on a piece of paper, big piece of paper, and then when you brush it off, you can reclaim it into a mixed jar if you want to. Here we go. Okay, I'm not too worried about spending a lot of time getting it perfect because it'll just burn onto the shelf. I'm going to throw this stuff excess away anyway, so it doesn't really matter. All right, so check it out. I'm holding up a little bit without them sliding off, I hope. And now we're going to go ahead and move this into the kiln. Okay, we're going to turn this around, back around. I want to point out that I have my kiln shelf on some kiln posts. Makes it a whole lot easier to lift it up off the table if you can get your fingers underneath it. Now we're going to move this over to the kiln. Come a little closer so you get a really nice look at those. Aren't they pretty? Get a nice look at the different materials. So we have powder, fine, medium, coarse, and mosaic. I'll put these in the kiln. We're going to fire these to a full fuse temperature of 1465 and hold there for 10 minutes. Then the kiln will slowly go down to 960, the annealing temperature, hold there for 40 minutes, and cool on its own back down to room temperature. And then we can see how these come out. So let's go ahead and close the lid. Oh, gotta give them a little kiss. And then we'll get those firing. So, looking forward to checking these out. They're gonna fire overnight. We'll check these out tomorrow.